Sit back, strap in, and get ready for After Hours with TC Restani. This is Abigail Harwich, executive producer, welcoming you to the show. And now, TC Restani!
All righty there. Welcome to the After Hours of TC Restani, the podcast. I'm TC Restani, emanating from the palatial podcast penthouse, and I'm here with my longtime close personal friend and mentor, Mr. Ricky Bittman. And the reason I'm talking like this is because Elvis Presley passed away on August 16th, 1977, and this is around the anniversary of his so-called passing.
So-called passing. A lot of people still don't believe that, Colonel.
All right. Now, Elvis Presley was a huge influence to everybody in the world of entertainment. Everybody has a little bit of Elvis Presley in them, I think.
Of course, yeah.
Obviously, look at the look that I have here on the program.
Yeah.
That is inspired, obviously, by the King and whatnot. But I have a question.
Sure.
Do you think Elvis faked his death?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
Why?
He had a lot of medical issues that I'm aware of.
You're aware of this? Because inquiring minds wonder why. I mean, this has been an urban legend going back until August of 1977, where some people say it wasn't him in the casket. It could have been a mannequin. Now, when we bring this up, Elvis at that point in time was on the downward spiral of his career. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I mean, he still packed them in no matter what. I mean, he's still
the king.
Yeah, again, there was no social media, so there wasn't this instant gratification where you could see Elvis, see him going here, going there. And he was,
which I'm sure he was grateful for.
He was, but he was, he was actually prepping to get himself back on track. He was going to do some movies, and he was going to do some live shows and stuff.
He's going to do some wrestling with Jerry Lawler.
That would have been great.
It would have been fantastic. Now, the reason I bring this up was when I was in high school back in the late 1980s, it was 10 years after Elvis passed away, and the whole thing, is Elvis alive? You could buy the record that someone recorded him at a Burger King somewhere.
Yeah, talking on the phone.
And but I think there's some urban legend, quote unquote, truth to this, because Elvis was involved in the CIA. He had a lot of connections with Richard Nixon.
He met him.
And he was, let's be honest, one of the biggest, if not the biggest entertainers in the world.
No question.
He was harassed by people all the time, chasing them down the street, limousines being chased, whatnot. You don't think he could have said, you know what, enough is enough?
He could have. He definitely could have. I know he had a lot of, money issues at the time, and he... But I mean, his health really was not good. I mean, if you look at the final concerts,
right? When he died, he was what, 42 years old.
42, yeah.
He looked way older than 42.
And he always maintained the talent of his voice. His voice always was immaculate.
Well, the last performance, where was that?
His last performance was in Indiana. In
Market Square Arena.
Yes, exactly. Very good.
You know how I know that?
Why?
Okay, going back to the wrestling thing.
I should know that off the top of my head. But
Jesse the Body Ventura, without question, one of the greatest play-by-play commentators in the history of professional wrestling, if not all sports. The Honky Tonk Man was going against the Macho Man Randy Savage on February 5th, 1988, live on NBC. It was the big thing with Hulk and Andre where they had the twin referees. Ted DiBiase got the belt.
Yep.
And he goes, McMahon, this is the last place in the world, the very last place that Elvis Presley performed. What better fitting for the Honky Tonk Man, who I think is even better.
Wow.
So that's how I knew that Market Square Arena in Indiana was the last place.
Sometime in June he performed.
That Elvis. He died in August of, obviously August of 1977. But because there's that video out here where he's playing the piano.
Yes, now that was not from that show.
That was not from Indiana.
No, a lot of people think that was, but it was not from that show. I don't know where that one was from exactly, but that footage was used for a special that was called Elvis in Concert that was put on after he passed away.
Okay.
On CBS.
Now, even then, you could see he was sweating profusely.
Yeah.
He gained a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But his voice was still angelic.
Yeah.
I mean, the voice never changed.
He had the powerful voice.
And the reason I'm thinking about, do I think he's dead? Of course I think he's dead now.
Of course.
But he had made more money dead than he did alive.
No question about that.
Kind of like Michael Jackson, which was his future son-in-law.
No question about that.
So you don't think that maybe Elvis said, you know what?
He could have done it. Yes, of course he could have done it. I don't think he did.
You don't think he did?
I don't think he did. I think Elvis Presley he lived off of an audience. He lived off performing. He lived off music. I don't think he could have put that in the rearview mirror. I really don't think he could have. He was always creating music. He's a genius at producing his own music. I mean, he had what he was able to do and tell you a song needed more bass or more this or the singers this.
Well, and that scene in Elvis when he's in Vegas at his own hotel.
And that's real.
And he's like, all right, more horns.
And that's how it went. And that's how it went.
So the guy was like in tune from like,
100%.
A higher power.
He loved music. He loved performing. He loved his home. He loved his family. And he loved his fans. He really did love his fans. He wasn't like always running away from them. He tailored his life around them.
I like to tailor his wife back then.
But he used to, just in the book I'm reading right now by Jerry Schilling, one of his guys, he would, Elvis would sleep all day. And he'd party through the night. He'd rent out Liberty Land Amusement Park for him and his buddies. The roller rink. They would go like 3 in the morning. They were on roller coasters because he just felt it was fair. If he went, it would just cause too much hysteria. He said, so if I want to do these things, I do them when everyone's asleep.
All right. So the guy was unique in a weird way.
Yeah.
He was eccentric.
Yeah.
He had all this money, in which he blew it all. He was a very charitable guy.
But he really wasn't eccentric. If you look at old footage of Elvis, every time there was his birthday, there was a birthday cake. He never drank. None of his guys drank. There was no real drug abuse. Except
who got him into the drugs?
He took prescriptions. He started taking prescription drugs in the Army to stay awake on watch duty at night. All the soldiers did. But the difference was Elvis was a very addictive personality. He loved the idea of being able to take a pill and solve this problem. I can't stay awake, so I'm going to take this pill. It's going to make me stay awake. Then when he comes home and everything, he didn't like to fly, or he didn't like to fly commercial. And what he would do is he would drive a bus across country when he had to film a movie. But he was like, how do these guys stay awake behind the wheel? You pop a Benzedrine, you pop Reds and all this stuff. Well, now I'm wide awake. We get to the hotel we're stopping at. Well, you take a sleeping pill. That appealed to him because he said, I'm doing this, it's working, and it's legal because it's prescription drugs.
He would have been great in the world of professional wrestling.
Oh, absolutely.
He would have fit in with the
He knew
Sheik.
the show. He kept his kayfabe and all that. I mean, he knew how to do it with people. I mean, he never was mean to the fans. He was like, this is why, he would say, this is why I am who I am, these people.
And he was only 42.
Only 42.
As a kid, when he died, it's like, 42 is like 100 years away.
I did think that,
42 was 11 years ago, all right? And just imagine that. It's the same age my dad died.
Yeah.
It's just like, wait a minute, 42?
Yeah,
but he was hard living on the road for how long?
Oh, God. I mean, you figure his 68 special, 68 comeback special, when he got out of the movie contracts, he toured constantly from 1968 all the way up until this.
So for 9 years, constantly on the road. And he was at that hotel in Vegas that was portrayed in the Elvis movie for
the Hilton.
4 or 5 years.
He had a deal with the Hiltons and the International Hotel. Always played all the hotels in Vegas. And then, when the Vegas contracts dried up, he just started going on the road. He was out there all the time. He went 5 cities and 5 nights. He would come in. He would literally get out of the limo, go right on stage, do his show, walk off the stage, get in the limo, and go.
Elvis has left the building.
That's exactly how he didn't like to be backstage for a long time. Everybody had to know their marks. They had to know what they were doing. They had to understand the show. They had to know the songs. Boom, in and out.
All right, so who was the one that started the rumor that Elvis was alive?
I just think,
some crackpot?
The reporters. I mean, God, look at Bill Bixby got tied up into it right before he died. He was suffering from what kind of cancer? I think he had, was it prostate cancer Bill Bixby died of? I mean, he was, that show, Is Elvis Alive? Do you remember that?
Right, yes, I do.
And it came with there was a book that went with it and everything.
A record.
And yeah, and you could see there was a thing in the pool house. If you looked through the door, you could see a guy looking out. And it looked like Elvis sitting in a chair. But Bill Bixby was so sick and he needed the money. So these were all money-making schemes. That just, I bought it. I bought the book with the cassette tape and the conversation. And I'm like, this sounds like Elvis. Because at one point, Elvis on the 68 special was like, people ask me if I listen to music and everything, and I like the new bands. I like the Beatles, and I like the Beards. And Jake made a joke. There was no band called the Beards. But now on this tape, he goes, so people would ask me how I would go out into public and how I would dress, and I'd put on disguises, and I'd, wear beards. So somebody obviously studied Elvis's voice, and because
this is way before AI.
Oh yeah, and I said, wait a minute, he said beards the same way Elvis did in the '68 special, and I'm like, well, of course he did, because that stuck out to people who are fans of Elvis, the Beatles and the Beards, because it was a funny line, and Elvis fans picked up on that because I listened to it, and he goes, there was one part on that tape, and again, I was riveted. I was listening to that. I'm like, well, like my heart.
He's really alive.
It was like the night of that guy calling in from Area 51 onto Art Bell. So I'm listening to this tape, and he's talking about it. And so I went into a restaurant, and a young lady, she recognized me, and she came over to the table, and she says, I don't know how you did it. I don't want to know how you did it, but I'm glad that you did it. And she started to cry, and I said, honey, don't you cry. But it sounded just like
So now, if someone has that album, you could scan it into a computer and do a voice analytic test on it with the real Elvis.
Sure.
What if it actually turned out to be real?
I mean, it would be remarkable. But it's like, now it's just, what's the point now? He's in his 80s.
He would be dead by now. He'd be almost
89,
90.
I think.
Yeah, 89. He was born the same year as my mother, so he'd be almost 90 years old. Possibility he could still be kicking.
Yeah, I mean, I got a good friend of mine who just turned 90, and he's 100% okay. He just... I just don't think so. I mean, he had a twisted colon, the things he was diagnosed with. His diet was very poor. He wasn't exercising. He wasn't taking care of himself. Not to disparage the guy, but they said he even took less of an interest in bathing, with the Nicholas thing. Yeah, he was kind of like the guys.
Kind of like our colonel.
Yeah, he's like, Elvis, might be time to change that suit and all that. He had to be reminded of things. But, he got to a certain point in his life where he just became on the spiritual hunt. He wanted to know why he had this. Why was it Elvis Presley and not this guy walking down the street picking up soda cans for a nickel?
Why wasn't it his twin brother who died at birth?
Jesse Garon, yeah.
So maybe he didn't die.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe he was on, on the back burner. It's like, as Elvis got worn out, let's wheel out this dude.
Yeah, it could be a great story.
It is a great story because let's call a spade. His number one fan was Andy Kaufman.
Oh yeah,
Andy Kaufman, traveled across country to hide in a closet in a Vegas kitchen just to see him.
Yeah,
and they did. They meet?
Yeah, and he said Andy Kaufman, out of all the people he's seen imitate him, he said Andy Kaufman was by far the best. And that's true.
And it was until the honky tonk man. Then what does Andy Kaufman do? He dies young, and then everybody says he faked his death.
I know, and I'm sorry.
You don't think?
No. Andy Kaufman was sick. If you look at some of those old videos or those interviews where he's all of a sudden in the middle of the interview, he starts going, like people saying, like, this is the...
It could be working them.
I'm just saying, it could be. He could be. Anything is possible. We know that.
Right.
But I think Andy Kaufman would definitely have let us off the hook by now.
Why?
Because this is what they do.
I know, but imagine someone who, we just had the 40th anniversary of supposedly passing of his death.
Yeah.
Maybe the guy's going to go for 50.
Who's going to know him by then? Another 10 years, I'm not going to give a shit. To be honest with you, I'll be what? Almost 70.
Well,
what
if he shows up with Elvis?
I'll say,
that guy. Oh yeah. So all right. So you did it. What did you prove?
Yeah, you just cheated me out of years of your great entertainment. That's all. I'd be like, come on, what the hell?
Right. Okay. That movie with Jim Carrey, that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's always been a fascinating subject to me that did Elvis fake his death and all those other ones, because it's like a lot of the music legends all die at 27. Yeah. Why the number 27?
Yeah, that's a good question, but that is true. Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin.
Does it have something to do? Did they make a deal with the devil and say, you're going to get all this press and celebrity and whatnot,
say this,
and we're going to tap out at 27?
If you want to talk things I believe in that aren't really of the ordinary, I do believe there are some celebrities that do make a deal with something evil in this world.
Like who?
Oh, dear God. Justin Bieber.
No one cares about him anymore.
But I'm just saying. I think
and he's over 27.
These celebrities. I would say, I would even go as far as to say Tom Hanks probably did. I just think that there is a selling of the soul that
I have a funny feeling he was on an island with more than just Wilson, the volleyball.
Yeah. And Jelly Roll, good example right there.
Who?
Jelly Roll. He's a guy that he's a manufactured vocalist.
Was it the guy who was just at SummerSlam?
Yeah. The country music industry.
He's all tattooed up.
Yeah, they're packaging these people and they're just giving them to us as prepackaged performers. They don't earn their stripes or anything. They just sort of like, hey, here's the newest flavor of the month. That's somebody I would think probably signed.
Jelly Rolls.
Yeah, he signed something.
In blood, huh?
Sold it over. And
Elvis obviously didn't.
Oh, God, no. They say the only time he won a Grammy was for gospel music.
Really?
Yes.
To me, Elvis Presley, 100 years from now, when someone says, who was the greatest entertainer of the 20th century? It's got to be Elvis.
His name's going to come up. His name will come up.
Even to this day, almost 50 years after his quote-unquote passing, everybody knows who Elvis is. Even people who aren't fans of Elvis or know music, they know the name Elvis.
Yeah. I think if I become a catatonic old man, if you put on some of his performances on television, I'll come to life. Because I watch them to this day, and Tosh will walk by and say, I never see you that happy until, if I'm watching something
caught
like
in a trap.
Just like him on stage and just watching the joy he gets out of it and the band and the. I mean, he hired these great musicians. God, James Burton, who was this great guitarist who played with Ricky Nelson. You get Ronnie Tutt, who was this phenomenal drummer. My God, these great keyboardists. Glenn D. Harden, the singers. Sissy Houston was one of his backup singers. Whitney Houston's mother, for crying out loud.
And what was his buddy there? Red
West, great actor.
Who was in Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, he was in a bunch of movies, and he was even in episodes of Combat and things like that.
Oh, wow.
And they say one of Elvis's best friends that he had a reputation for romancing a lot of his co-stars, but the one that he never sullied, I would say, would be Donna Douglas, Ellie Mae, because she was so pure and holy, and she was just such a good person.
Well, Uncle Jed had a gun.
Yeah, that's true. But but that was one of his favorite shows too, and then he went to star with her, and Elvis,
is that why Max Baer Jr. resembles Elvis?
A huge Elvis fan. I mean, and Elvis was a huge fan of Jethro Bodine. I mean, he loved that show, and that show we've talked about. It's a great show.
How come you never guest starred on it?
Probably because the Colonel just wouldn't allow it. Colonel's whole thing was, if people want to see my boy, they're going to pay and sit in a seat to see him. We're not going to make it easy for them to see him on television.
And how come we pushed him at all the movies?
Because you paid for a ticket.
I got you, but that's right. You don't pay to watch the Beverly Hillbillies.
Right,
It's free on TV.
And that's why he was never interviewed by Mike Douglas or Johnny Carson. Wouldn't that have been something? Elvis sitting down with Johnny Carson?
Now,
wouldn't that have been something?
That would have been fantastic. It would have been the interview of the century.
I mean, when Elvis was in his prime, and he's like in the 72, 74, 68 to 74, 75.
Sure, right as Johnny moved to Burbank.
Yeah.
Elvis lived in Vegas. He could have been there in 5 minutes.
He had a house in Palm Springs. He had a house in Los Angeles. I mean, he had a house in Hawaii.
Their paths must have crossed because Johnny played Vegas a lot.
I'm sure Johnny saw him live.
Right. Just wouldn't it be awesome to have a time machine and go back to that era and go to the Strip in between 1969 and 74, just to see not only that, you got Elvis,
Sammy Davis,
Frank Sinatra, Don Rickles in his prime, all these legends would have been out there. I mean, I guess that's what YouTube is for. You can see these things, but it's not the same as actually seeing them in a private room.
Yeah, if time travel were possible,
Don Rickles, imagine going to one of his shows at 4 a.m. at the Flamingo Hotel, and just seeing that and just watching that and saying, I saw Don Rickles live at 4 a.m. and he knocked the room down.
Yeah.
Seeing Elvis on stage. Yeah. Did you ever see Elvis? Did you ever go to one of his shows?
Lord, no. I was never that fortunate. I know someone who saw him in Florida in the 50s.
Right.
Still the king of
Colonel
rock.
Bull Montana went to one of his shows.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, he played, the closest he played to here was, from what I understand, I believe he played. Oh no, he played the Boston Garden. I'm sorry, he did play the Boston Garden.
That's where the Colonel had to have seen him.
That had to have been it. Yeah, I'm not sure what year that was, but he was supposed to do his last show at the Portland Civic Center.
Oh, the Portland, Maine.
Portland, Maine. Yeah, that was. They say that's the highest collectible was the ticket.
The ticket stub.
The ticket to the show.
When was that supposed to be?
That would have been on that day, August
16th, 1977. He was supposed to play Portland.
Or maybe it was the 17th because he died on the 16th and he was supposed to fly out that night to be in
on the Lisa
Portland.
Marie.
Yeah, on the Lisa Marie. Yeah.
Now, if Elvis did fake his death, he's long gone because after his daughter died, he would have been around for that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he ever would have let her marry Michael Jackson.
No, God, no. And
or Nicolas Cage.
I'll tell you what else he would not have allowed. He would not have allowed her to become a Scientologist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was vehemently opposed to the Church of Scientology.
He was a Baptist.
Yeah, he was and the fact that Priscilla got into that really pissed him off.
Really?
'Cause I think she kind of was like dabbling in that after they got divorced. I mean, the divorce was very amicable. They, he knew he effed up with her and they parted ways and all that.
Well, she went hang around with Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she was successful after she left.
I've met her. She's a very, very nice person.
Sweet lady, of course.
But it's kind of weird. It's like you're famous just because you were Elvis's wife.
Yeah.
I mean, she was a great actress.
That's how famous he is.
That's how. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah. She's a good actress. She was on Dallas and she was in the Naked Gun movies. Yeah. But your claim to fame is you're Elvis's wife.
Yeah.
That's it.
I met Elvis's Uncle Vester, and I have his autograph on the back.
Wasn't he on the Addams Family?
That was Fester.
Oh, sorry.
This was Vester, short for Sylvester, and he signed the back of my Sun Records business card.
Really?
Vester Presley. Very nice man. He always, his job was to run the gates of Graceland. So when certain people would come, they'd say, well, who are you? He'd say, and then he'd get on the phone, and he'd open the gate for you.
Now, did he have any crazy parties like Hugh Hefner at Graceland?
You know, his party, what he would do is he would carouse with his buddies. They used to, and one of his favorite things to do was have fireworks fights. Him and his buddies, they'd put on leather
Roman
jackets.
Candles and stuff?
Roman candles. They put on leather jackets and motorcycle helmets, and they'd shoot each other with Roman candles. They had these low-riding go-karts. You saw it in the movie. They raced around. That's all true. He got very caught up into horseback riding. He bought a horse for Priscilla once. So then he went out one day and bought a ranch.
What was the horse's name?
Her horse was, I want to say, Domino. That was the name of her horse. It was a black horse. His was a golden palomino called Rising Sun. And he named the barn where the horses kept House of the Rising Sun.
Did that have anything to do with his love of karate?
Well, karate was a huge influence. Like he learned about that in the Army, the discipline of karate, and everything that Mr. Miyagi taught.
Right.
Like Elvis would have been a huge fan of the Karate Kid movies and a huge fan of Cobra Kai. He would be watching.
Did he break boards and everything?
Oh yeah, he did all that. I mean, he wasn't probably the level of karate expert that he kind of passed himself off at, but he knew the basics, but he appreciated it, and he incorporated a lot of those moves into his stage act. And some of it's funny sometimes when you see him do it. But, you know, he was very passionate about it. He's a very passionate guy about everything.
Right.
Like I said, he was into horses. He went out and he bought a ranch, and he moved all the guys onto the ranch, and he bought trucks. He spent $1 million in the course of like 5 months, which back in those days was considered a huge amount of money. He bought every one of his guys a pickup truck. He bought every one of them a house on the land and all that. And then, you know, he lost interest in it and sold it all and just moved on to the next passion. And
now, I heard a story that he didn't have much money in the bank when he passed away. Supposedly passed away.
Yeah, no, I think he only had a couple $1 million or
really?
something like that.
You think, here's the guy. Here's Elvis.
Yeah.
The guy sold out arenas all over the country, all over the world.
Yeah. The Colonel didn't want for much, but Elvis did. And what'll that tell you, you know?
How much was the Colonel worth when he tapped?
Well, you know, now that I think about it, I know he had a lot of gambling debts, but he paid them all off with Elvis.
Right.
I mean, so who knows?
Now, why did now I've seen the movie Elvis, but what was his devotion to the Colonel? Why did he keep him around?
His father and mother always said that without the Colonel, they wouldn't have had it. Like they owed him that.
Okay.
That they wouldn't have had it. But he was getting close to the point where he was listening to guys like Steve Binder and all that, the guys who told him, like, you know, your career sucks right now. They told him that, and he appreciated it, and he was making the change. I mean, a lot of what Elvis did after the 68 special, the Colonel didn't have a hell of a lot to say. The movies were gone. But every now and then an opportunity would arise that for some reason or another that Elvis and his father would listen to him and pull away from the opportunity, like A Star is Born. He wanted to do that with Barbra Streisand. And the Colonel was like, and I'm not, you know, disparaging. The Colonel said, you're not going to listen to no Jew woman. That's not going to happen. You know, it's her show, not yours, Elvis. That's not going to be what it is. If they want you, you're going to be the show, not Barbra Streisand. And he was pissed because he wanted to do that. And I think that role would have really, he'd be alive today.
Really?
Yeah. People would have loved him in it. He was a good actor. He was disciplined. Out of all, they say, and when he was acting, he was there every day on time. He knew every one of his lines. He was prepared because he felt he owed it to those people. They're paying him. This is how it's going to be.
Right.
But when he was on his own time, you know.
Do what he wants.
Yeah.
He was the king.
He played football with his buddies. And again, nothing was really salacious. I mean, listen, Elvis screwed a lot of women.
Sure. Of course. Elvis.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, but that wasn't. Like, it wasn't like, you know.
That wasn't his life.
Yeah, he wasn't beating up women in elevators and stuff like that
Right.
that you see now. I mean, he was just screwing and moving on to the next one. And he was very careful not to get there was one woman came at him with a paternity lawsuit. And sure enough, the baby was not his. They did the test. Like, sorry, lady.
Sorry, Elvis is not the father.
Exactly. So, I mean, you really don't hear that much about him. The most salacious thing I would say, and I keep using that word, would be, you know, Priscilla was obviously a very young girl when they fell in love, but he was a young guy. I mean, he was like 21 and she was, 14? I mean, okay.
It was down south.
Yeah, and listen, she had a baby 9 months to the day of their wedding.
If he wasn't Elvis, he probably would have been put in jail, all right? But he's Elvis, and he's...
Well, he moved her into the house.
Okay.
His grandmother was her what do we call it? Chaperone. His father made sure that she went to school, and she did. She got her education, and when she was 18, they got married, and the baby was born 9 months to the day of their wedding. So
he was probably sitting there going, okay, come on.
Time to party, baby.
Shake, rattle, and roll.
That's what we would call her. But
let's go down to the Heartbreak Hotel.
But, you know.
Heartbreak Hotel. I'll be so alone. I'll be so alone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just like the specter of Elvis himself. He seeps
possessing Mr. Briscoe over here. So is it safe to say that Elvis Presley is one of your heroes?
Yes. And at the time of his death, I really knew nothing about him.
Really? When did you start becoming an aficionado on the King?
Good question. So I was 12 back in 1977. Being 12 years old was different than being 12 now. You didn't have a lot of knowledge of the world. My world was my home. And when I was around that age, when I was being left home alone for the first time. And what did I want to control more than anything when I was home by myself?
The TV.
The stereo.
Oh, on the radio.
Because this TV was mine. I always got to watch it. I would tell my mother, I want to watch The Incredible Hulk and they want to watch Dallas. I always won. But at any rate, so I'm going through the cabinet of all the 8-track tapes, the worst format for music in the world. Have you ever listened to an 8-track tape?
They don't sound good at all.
Well, it's not even that. It's like in the middle of the song, it'll go to the next track, so it cuts the song in half. It's just awful. But I'm over in the cabinet, and I'm like, the hell, everything is Elvis. My sisters all had Elvis. They had Beach Boys and Beatles and other stuff, but 90% of the 8-track tapes were Elvis 8-track tapes. I'm like, the hell is this?
What was the first one you listened to?
So I pop it in, and what do I hear but the 2001 Space Odyssey theme?
You thought Ric Flair was in the building?
Exactly. So I'm like, wait, what is this? That's that movie that they show on Channel 56 every now and then. And I'm like, all right, what's this? And then you hear the boom, the drums and everything. And that song was called Hail Elvis. Like the guys, after they played the 2001, they would kick into Hail Elvis. Yep, that's Hail Elvis. Then they would cut into CC Rider, which would be his opening song. But I'm like, what am I listening to? And then I'm like, and I was like, wait a minute, this is him like performing. I didn't know, like, I'm 12. I'm like, live concerts? What's that? So I'm like, okay, he's singing in front of an audience. And it's like, I didn't know what a rock concert was. I'm like, wait a minute, this is cool. And CC Rider, and I'm looking on it, and I'm hearing Teddy Bear, but I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't the Teddy Bear I hear on the radio. This is him singing, I want to be a teddy bear, because he wanted to get through those songs real quick and then go into singing the songs he liked now in those later part of the years. But I was like, wow, that's really cool. Then I was listening to this other songs, and I'm like, this guy's voice is incredible. And then I went and bought, I remember Reader's Digest advertised this LP set. It came in a slipcase and everything. I bought that. And then it just started, and then I said to myself, why don't I just go to Graceland? And this was 1989 now. This was 12 years after he died. So I was 12, so I was 24. I went to Graceland for the first time. And boy, what a play. I mean, it was very humble. It was just a museum, like a roadside museum with a few gift shops. And that was it. Now it's this multimedia.
Sure.
It's like Epcot Center.
It's now Disneyland of Memphis.
It really is. But so I just discovered his music. I will say this. I have seen 3 Elvis movies. I saw, Jailhouse Rock, King Creole, which is his best movie, and Girl Happy, because I won Girl Happy on a radio show, so I watched the VHS tape because I won it. But, I mean, Tickle Me and Harem Scarum and Spin Out. Oh, no, of course I saw Viva Las Vegas because of Anne Margaret. But his theatrical movies were terrible. And the soundtracks were awful. Someday we should listen to some of the songs. I mean, they're just terrible. Dating is a game that grown-ups play. Dating makes you act in a funny way. I mean, that's
sounds like a jingle for a department store.
And this is Elvis Presley singing this fucking song. And then he'd like crack up and he goes, I sound like a wino, man. I mean, he was all this great opportunity, and this music is passing him by. Like Creedence Clearwater Revival is out there. Led Zeppelin is out there. The Beatles, and Elvis is like, what was it? Clam bake. I'm going to have a clam bake. I mean, Jesus.
Surprised we haven't heard that in any seafood restaurant around here. Now, the question I have always wanted to ask, and you seem to be the local Elvis expert.
Yeah.
The look. Where did that come from? The hair, the sideburns, the jumpsuits.
The look came from the hair and everything came from when he started growing his hair that way. He wanted to be a truck driver. And that's how truck drivers wore their hair. And that's what it'll say. The truck drivers wear their hair with the sideburns and the long hair.
I thought you were going to say Superman, because Superman kind of had the hair.
Well, Elvis was a huge comic book fan. His favorite superhero was Captain Marvel. He loved Captain Marvel. That's where he got the lightning bolt.
Oh, the thing we can see in your own, the TCB.
Yep, that came from...
the TC is not me, by the way.
TCB, Taking Care of Business in a Flash. And, so that the look for there. The jumpsuits came from... I'm trying to remember what there was somebody who he looked at, And again,
because I can't remember anybody who was in jumpsuits at that point in time.
They were. I mean, a lot of it, like the rhinestones and everything, came back to, of course, the designer who designed a lot of the country music outfits of the 50s and 60s. Nudie was the guy's name. His last name was Nudie. He was a designer, and I know a lot of that played into it. And then he had these guys just, coming up with cape. He wanted a cape because, again, Captain Marvel. He loved the whole idea of the cape.
Okay, so I wasn't far off with the Superman look.
No, definitely not. No, I'm sure he read Superman comics, but his favorite was Captain Marvel.
Because he had the little, the what was it, the pompadour or whatnot?
Yeah, the pompadour.
Truck drivers had pompadours back in the day?
Yeah, they used a lot of the greasy kid stuff, which he used. And then later in years, of course, he went to the dry look. I mean, there was a book written by a guy, Larry Geller, who was his hairdresser. And and I never realized this, but he said Elvis's hair was very fine. It wasn't like hair that was thick and anything. It was like really wispy, fine hair. And if you see some of the footage of the video, you can tell because it was real hard to style it and everything. That's why in some of his videos, his hair is just completely down and he's covered in sweat because he was so physical.
How many holes in the ozone layer happened there with all the hairspray in Memphis, Tennessee?
I'm telling you, yeah. But I mean...
So he had the whole entertainment package. He could sing, he could dance, he could play the guitar. He had a unique look that people are emulating to this day. You go out in Las Vegas, there are people dressed as Elvis, cleaning toilets out there. It's just, is it safe to say he's the most imitated artist of all time?
I would say so, sure.
And the most respected.
Well, a lot of people have tried to disparage Elvis over the years, and I can understand that.
Well, they're just looking for a
Attitudes
quick
change.
buck.
Yeah, and they'll say that he was a racist. I mean, just because he had a black woman working for him, he bought her home. I mean, she lived in a home. I mean, he was always nice to black. His friends were blacks when he was growing up.
Well, he grew up in a black community. He was part of the church.
Yeah, and his friend would take him over to this area of Memphis called Shake Rag, and where he would go and watch the blues performers. All that stuff in the movie is true. And I mean, I'll tell you an interesting story about Elvis. Jackie Wilson, one of the greatest black singers of all time. Jackie Wilson did not do a lot of live concerts. He did a lot of nightclub things because his manager was in debt. So he wouldn't get him out of the nightclub contracts. Jackie Wilson came down with a debilitating disease, and Elvis paid for his hospital stay and paid for his complete rehabilitation afterwards. Elvis took care of Jackie Wilson. And Elvis will say a lot of the moves that Elvis adopted in his later career, he stole from Jackie Wilson. They were very good friends. I mean, Elvis was not a racist.
Everybody steals from everybody.
Yeah. Oh, you steal from the best.
I mean, you're going to steal from the best. I mean, how many people have stole from Elvis?
Yeah. Oh, my God. Are you kidding me?
I mean,
Eddie Murphy is a self-professed Elvis Presley fan. I mean, he says, you can say what you want about Elvis, but Elvis was bad. I mean, of course, he made fun of him, but by the same time, he knew. When Elvis walked on the stage, he was a bad mother ever,
Andrew Dice Clay.
Of course.
Entire career is basically he's Elvis on stage.
Yeah.
A filthy Elvis.
Yeah, a dirty mouth, foul mouth Elvis.
But it's just, I mean, even, remember our old show announcer, Uncle Frank?
Yeah.
He loved Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Here's a stout Republican, when I asked him, Frank, who's the greatest entertainer of all time? Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
He crossed boundaries.
Yeah.
And it's pretty scary to think that it's coming up on the 50th anniversary of his passing or his fake passing. But, I think he's gone. But I just think that he was such a magical, mystical character that they had to do that just to make his lore even more infamous.
Yeah. And, to cash in on the whole, is he alive or is he dead?
Right.
Quick story. 1997, when I went to that show at the Mid-South Coliseum, it was the 20th anniversary of his death. They had all the original musicians, Joe Gershio, his orchestra, everybody, the background singers, everybody was there. Now, we're in the auditorium. The show is starting. Boom, 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 boom. And what comes on the screen but a shot of Elvis's bedroom? Now, anyone who is in that theater knows that that's Elvis's bedroom, okay? And what are they doing? It's Joe Esposito, all the guys, they got the satin jackets on, like Bobby Heenan's little satin jacket, everything, the original tour jackets. This gives me chills as I'm telling it now. And they're helping this guy put on, and I'm telling you, I grabbed my buddy Mike's arm I said, Mike, what the hell are we seeing here? And he's like, Rich, I don't know, but just keep watching. Don't take your eyes off the screen. And they're getting this guy prepped and everything. You never see his face, but the shape of him, the way he moved, the shape of his head, the suit, he's walking through Graceland. He's walking down the stairs. The people who are working there are all standing by the wall watching. They're nodding to him. You always see him from the back. He walks out onto the lawn of Graceland. He gets in a helicopter. The helicopter takes off. And then they go back to cuts of the band. And then you get shots of the helicopter flying over Memphis. Then you got shots of the helicopter landing in the Mid-South Coliseum parking lot, okay? Now, people are losing their absolute shit now, okay? He gets into a limousine. All of a sudden, behind the stage, one of the bay doors or whatever, a limousine pulls into the arena, and I grab my buddy Mike's arm again, and I'm like, what? Well, basically the limousine lit up from inside, and then the Hail Elvis starts, dun, 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 and the limousine doors open by themselves. How, we don't know, and all this smoke comes out, the steam or the fog machine, and they put a spotlight of a silhouette on it. And I'm telling you, how they did this, I don't know, but the silhouette walked up on stage, and then the screen lit up, and it was Elvis from one of his concerts, and that's how the show was. He was on screen singing, but the music was all live.
Wow!
But it really, I mean, for a minute, I bought into it for a minute.
You almost needed some. You always needed some Depends.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, whoever put that together was a wrestling fan. There's no question about it.
It sounds like a Ric Flair entrance.
Exactly. They were just like, man, we're gonna have people believing in this shit, and they did. I bought into it for a couple seconds. It was exciting though. Never forget that night. Had my program signed by a lot of the TCB band, Millie Kirkham, who sang backup with him. All these people who were part of his life. A lot of them are dead now.
Well, it is 20 some odd years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
That I would have absolutely went. If I was a huge Elvis fan like you were, I would have been absolutely insane.
Yeah, it was
of that happening.
And there was a lot of surprises too. Like George Klein was there, one of his buddies who did his great announcing voice. Wink Martindale was emceeing the night.
That's right, because he's from Memphis.
Yep, and he talked about his stories with Elvis and all that. And then he goes, and we have a very special surprise for you. And it was the first time they showed the remember when Nat King Cole sang with Natalie Cole? They put
the split screen deal.
Yeah. They did that with Elvis and Lisa singing "Don't Cry, Daddy." Right?
Wow.
I'll never forget. This is sad because it was emotional. But this guy sitting next to us, he was probably maybe good $4 bills with his wife, and he's sitting there watching. All of a sudden, he just goes. He starts crying. And me and my buddy Mike was dying because his soul was, his heart was breaking, and we felt bad at the same time, but it was just funny. He's trying not to cry, and all of a sudden he's doing.
I can just picture this too. Some 400-pound dude.
He had a camera around his neck. Back when you had to carry a camera, he had a plaid shirt. He had a pocket protector. He had those orthotic compression socks on, just sitting there. And he starts crying. His wife is like, "Oh my God,
come on, Billy, it's okay. It's okay. We love the king."
I'm sorry. He's such a pussy. He always has been.
he's a little emotional, especially on the 20th anniversary.
All those testosterone is just coming out of his ass.
All those peanut butter and banana sandwiches.
Which I'm going to have Tosh make for me the weekend of Elvis's anniversary. I'm going to have her fry up one just like his maid used to do for him.
Really?
Maybe not quite as much butter. She would take 2 sticks of butter, and she would melt them and heat them up. And she would take the peanut butter and banana sandwich and just drop it in the hot butter, and it would absorb it all. And
try doing it with olive oil.
Maybe.
Oh, you'll be joining Elvis and the great beyond.
But he ate a lot of them. I just won one. I did have one in Memphis. I went to the arcade restaurant, and I had one of those with a side order potato salad, and it was delicious.
I'm surprised they haven't done that any marketing, like an Elvis restaurant.
They tried down there. There was a restaurant called Elvis Presley's Memphis. It just
really they just served
it was cool. I mean, it looked awesome. It was like a Hard Rock Cafe, but it was all Elvis stuff. It just didn't take off. You got to get the right people in there. You get staff working. You got to buy into it. It's like Jimmy Buffett's restaurants. Those people, when they're hired, this is how you're gonna whether you like it or not, you are going to believe that Jimmy Buffett is the king of everything. Okay,
right.
That's the way you preach it.
Well, with the 50th anniversary coming up, you think there's going to be a big resurgence of the king?
Well, right now, Baz Luhrmann, the guy who directed the movie, is supposedly working on what any good Elvis fan knows as the outtakes of the movie called Elvis on Tour, which I highly recommend you watch because then you'll get an idea of why people like Elvis so much. But it was his touring years, a couple of years of following him on the road, where just these dynamic performances. But there's so much footage that was used that wasn't used that they could package.
So once you get Peter Jackson to make a documentary like he did with the Beatles.
It's just like that. They really need to. But I think Baz Luhrmann could do it because he loves Elvis. I mean, I'd give him credit. But he's got to get his ass moving.
So Elvis inspired you.
Oh, no question.
100%. Elvis's look is inspired what I do on the program. We used to do on the TV show. Our good friend Maria Stefanos, the newscaster on Channel 5 here in Boston, she became a newscaster because she saw how fascinating people's reactions were to his death.
Yeah.
And she saw how people were glued to the news, and it was all about Elvis, and she got into broadcasting. So Elvis has changed a lot of people's lives.
There's no question. I mean, look what he's done for Memphis, the commerce down in Memphis alone, for crying out loud.
Well, like I said, it's the Disneyland of Memphis.
Yeah, that whole...
I mean, what's really down in Memphis other than Elvis Presley?
Not much. Jerry Lee Lewis's house, that's about it.
Jerry the King Lawler?
Yeah, Jerry. And he has a restaurant on Beale Street. Go and read the reviews of that sometime. Oh, boy, I'm surprised.
It can't be as bad as the reviews of the Macho Man Randy Savage's rap album. I'll never forget this as long as I lived. Someone wrote, how can this album suck and blow at the same time?
Oh, that's terrible. Poor Macho.
God bless his soul. But it's just been a fascinating journey. We could talk about Elvis Presley till the cows come home.
I could talk to him.
And if people want to listen to some of your classic episodes of Ricky Bittman's Jukebox, you must have an Elvis show out there.
Elvis show was in the works, but it never happened.
It never really did.
It never happened. No. I just said, so many people love Elvis, but then I said I had a show in mind of songs that I know people who say they know Elvis never heard these songs. Tomorrow Never Comes and Stranger in My Own Hometown, Long Black Limousine. Like, it's not all Teddy Bear and Jailhouse Rock. There was a lot of songs that he sang that he just owned when he sang them.
I got to hook you up with my friend Corey, who goes by the name the Elvis Expert, who lives out in Carson City in Reno.
Yeah.
I used to hear him on all these shows like Art Bell and whatnot talking about the conspiracy if he's dead enough. Obviously, he didn't believe that Elvis was dead, but he is the Elvis expert out there. You and him have got to get together and do a podcast.
I envy these guys who know their stuff to the point where they know dates and times and all that. I really don't know those. I mean, I'm a fan of the music.
Just a mega fan.
But, I do, of course, retain some of the stuff, and I just have a huge appreciation and admiration for the guy. There's just so much in the guy, and that's an inside joke for anyone who's an Elvis fan. But I mean, just seeing his live performances, there's really nothing like it. I just wish we got to see more of them.
Maybe we will.
I hope so.
AI.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Well, if you listen, I mean, I was doing AI searches on YouTube the other day, him singing current songs. Some of them are really good. I mean, a lot of Elvis purists are like, oh, how could you even listen to that? I'm like, well, why not?
You're not going to get anything new from the guy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hearing him sing a Bruce Springsteen song. It was pretty cool. So.
Which Bruce Springsteen song?
It was I'm on Fire.
Really?
Hey, little dad, good to you. Wanna do
wow, that even sounds like Elvis. Yeah. I can hear that.
Like, some songs will work. Some songs really won't. But that one worked. And I was like, that was pretty impressive.
As long as he's not singing any like Ariana Grande Justin Bieber shit.
You could do it, but I mean, if I was able to do it, I would really have a lot of fun with that. But I don't have the talent or the equipment to do that. But I definitely would try it. Have him sing some new songs, like some Allman Brothers, like him singing the Allman Brothers Midnight Rider. I got one more silver dollar, knocking on the Midnight Rider.
In my warped mind, I want to hear him sing the Brady Bunch theme.
Well, I mean, I would probably do that at some point too, or the Partridge Family. Traveling along with a song that you're singing, come on, get happy.
Unbelievable. This has been a fantastic journey down.
I could talk about him for days.
I mean, we're just tip of the iceberg here on Elvis Presley. I mean, I'm not as schooled in the Elvis lore as you are. Yeah. I'm a humongous fan. I appreciate what he did. Yeah. His legacy will go on long after he's even forgotten. Yeah. And he will always be the king of rock and roll.
Well, as they say, what do we have right in the White House right now? 46? 46 presidents. There's a guy who used to do a radio show, and he goes, there have been 46 presidents, but only one king of rock and roll, and that is Elvis Presley.
You think he was abducted by aliens?
Could have been. Anyone could be. I could be abducted on my way home tonight.
We can't have that happening.
Well, if I'm not here next week, you'll know why. And just want to go on the record that I don't think I've ever had to phone into the show, so
Don't jinx it.
I'm just saying. I honor my commitments.
You do. You have to make the next town.
That's right. I'm going to work on those damn shows and make sure that we fool people.
Well, this has been a little extra bonus. I mean, this has nothing to do with our regular podcast, but you were talking about Elvis, and I said, you know what? The microphones are here.
I can talk about them anytime.
Let's do it right now. Abby said, go for it. Everybody loves Elvis.
I appreciate it.
And here we are.
Thank you, Abby.
And this is airing sometime around Elvis's passing or the anniversary of his passing. Yeah. And I want to thank you, Ricky Bittman. Not only are you my mentor, but you are a fountain of information.
I try to be. I'm just a fan. And
most of the people I know are fountains of misinformation.
That's right. You're a fountain of misinformation.
But you, my friend, are indeed
I try to be
an Elvis aficionado. Can you sing us off the air?
what was it? What did we say? He'd say at the end of the shows, he's, wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. Elvis has left the building. Thank you and good night.
And we never close.
Never.